I don't think enough guys are talking about this, and I really do think that it changes everything that you think you know about relationships. Romantic relationships, relationships in your workplace or with your boss, with your coworkers, relationships with your friends and family. And when I first read about it, when I first implemented it in my own life, it was a paradigm shift. Conversation is meant to be reciprocal. But unfortunately, the reality is that most people listen to somebody else. They already know what they want to say next. They're just waiting to say it. They're not really engaging. They're not really listening to the other person. So at the tip of the iceberg, what everybody should know about communicating better is active listening. Not just waiting your turn to say something, but really engaging in what the other person is saying to you. So not only you can understand what they're saying, but they will feel that they have been understood. And that is really key. One of the things that people really truly care about in life is feeling like they're understood. In fact, this video that you're watching right now, my hope is that you feel when you watch these videos that you are better understood, that I understand where you're at because you and I share a lot of the same circumstances or the same life experiences, and we're trying to work this all out together. And by communicating my thoughts and my ideas, I'm hoping that you feel like I at least somewhat understand you. And that's why you gravitate towards these videos. But the way that you would do that when you're actually involved in a conversation between two or more people is by pausing the internal dialogue on what you want to say next and really being present with what the person is saying and try to actively listen. But we can take that much deeper. That's what this video is about. What I want to talk with you about today is how you can find your best way of communication, how you can find out how your partner best communicates, how your friends best communicate, how your boss or your coworkers best communicate, how your parents or your brothers or your sisters best communicate. If you know what you need in communication and you can look for the signs in other people to understand where they're at with that, it makes this whole process so much more easy. And all of those arguments that you have, all of those misunderstandings that cause relationships to fail or friendships to blow up in flames or you to lose your job, get fired, whatever it might be, are mitigated. There's a really good quote by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He was the author of that book. He has a really good quote, which is, seek first to understand, then to be understood. The first reason you want the person on the other end of your conversation to feel like they're being understood by you is because it's probably the greatest way to build relationships. That's what all of us are looking for, is just to be understood. The second reason why you want to seek first to understand the other person before giving your point or being understood yourself is because once you've understood the person on the other end of the conversation, it's going to influence the very point that you wanted to get across in the first place, or the very topic of conversation, because you now have more information on how they see this thing, especially if you're in conflict, if you're trying to work out an argument or something. If you try to understand the person on the other end of that argument before having your point come across, you may realize that you had this whole thing misunderstood in the first place. The reason why they acted a certain way or said a certain thing had nothing to do with the reason you were so upset about it. Now, the thing is that when I say communication, probably the first thing that comes to mind is conversation, speaking. But what we're talking about today are 5 different ways of communication. They're actually called the 5 love languages. Most of the guys who I've spoken with about the 5 love languages have heard of, this concept, but 2 things typically come up. The first thing is that it's woo-woo. It's like, new age nonsense, very girly or feminine, and it doesn't, they have no interest in it. The second thing that comes up is, even if they are receptive to it, there's this misunderstanding that it's about how you receive love or how you best communicate. And the reality is that the gold that's found in learning these 5 love languages and applying them in your life is mostly about how you can learn to understand and communicate with the people in your life that you really care about, making it about them essentially. And by mastering this in your life, you can pretty well guarantee that the relationships in your life will deepen immensely. And it's not just romantic relationships, it's also the relationships with your friends. Your bros, right? Like, it's important to know how they receive friendship from you, just as important as it is from your partner or your family members. There's a couple really big challenges I think that we face as a society right now, which are kind of the reason why we don't approach our relationships this way. I think at the forefront of that is the dating culture that we find ourselves in today, particularly among young people, because it's more about meeting your own needs rather than looking for opportunities to build a stronger connection by deepening this level of communication, by understanding somebody almost better than they can understand themselves. So let's quickly run through the 5 love languages, and then we'll come back to them and we'll elaborate on each to give you some ideas of how you can not only understand if it's a powerful motivator for you, but also identify if this is a powerful communication style for the people in your life. So the 5 are words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, physical touch, and receiving gifts. So let's start with words of affirmation. So right off the get-go with words of affirmation, the first thing you want to do is not overdo it. You want to make sure that the things that you're giving words of affirmation for, you genuinely feel that way and you know that they'll genuinely appreciate it. Don't make it your goal to just praise everything, because if you praise everything, it will devalue the things that you really do care about or the things that you really do want to praise. Another thing that you want to make sure of is that you're not devaluing yourself in the words of affirmation. So saying, oh, you're so this and I could never be that, or you're so much better than me, or I don't deserve you, or anything like that. That's not words of affirmations. That's actually words of defamation towards yourself. Words of affirmation, compliments, they should be very specific. And if, for example, you're complimenting your partner, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever it might be, it's easy to fall into the trap of constantly praising physical beauty. But what you want to look for are the things that you genuinely appreciate about your partner that help her see the full spectrum of who she is that you really appreciate. It's not just her physical looks, but it could be as simple as the way that she treats her friends, the way that she treats her family, the way that she cares for your children, or the morals that she has, the books that she reads, the interests that she has, the hobbies that she has. If you can look for unique and specific things about your partner, or anyone for this matter, whether it's a friend or family member who receives words of affirmation that are specific and unique to them, that will help them feel better seen by you and better understood by you. And that's really ultimately what we're after. Because after all, of course, these are the people that we care about. Number 2, acts of service. Well, this is a big one of mine. It's not about being a pushover and doing things for somebody at the drop of a hat, or forgoing something that you had on your own schedule to do something for somebody else. One thing you want to make sure that you don't fall into is like martyr syndrome, where you're constantly putting your own things off to the side in order to make yourself available for somebody else to earn their favor, while silently in the background keeping tabs on all the things that you did for that person. That is absolutely not acts of service. Acts of service are when you can make time, you identify things that your partner or your friend or your family member really needs a hand with, or would really benefit from, something that you can do for them. I'll give you some examples from my own life. My parents needed a fence built around their backyard to keep the dog in. Acts of service being something that is really important for me to show, I took that as an opportunity to show my love for my parents by building them that fence around the backyard. But it doesn't have to be anything huge. Another one that I do for my girlfriend is I take her dog downstairs to go pee at night before going to sleep, because I live in Canada, it's winter, it's cold, she doesn't really want to go down, plus it's nighttime and there's crazy people out all over the place. So I want her to know that I really care about her, that I love her, and one of the ways that I can show that is by doing those sorts of things for her. So that would be another example of acts of service. The third one is quality time, and a trap that you can fall into with this one is thinking that all time spent together is quality time. The key word is quality. I mentioned this book before, but I have it over there, The Way of the Superior Man. He mentions that your partner would be happier with 30 minutes of your devoted attention, your time, than to be with you for 4 or 5 hours, but have your mind somewhere else because you're thinking about something else, whether it's a project that you have or something that you'd rather be doing. It's not about the amount of time, it's about the quality. That's why it's called quality time. So if this is something that's important to your partner, quality time is actually one of the easiest ones to achieve, because all you have to do is be with your partner in that moment and have your undivided attention with them, not on them, but with them. They want to feel like you're with them. The time that you're spending together in that moment is the only thing that you would want to do. That's what's important to them in that moment. For you to achieve that, you have to also think, what do you need? In order for you to show up 100% in that quality time, you have to make sure that things in your life outside of that time are not going to make their way in. So if you know that you're going to spend some time in the evening with your partner, get done in the day what you need to do, or do the things leading up to this time so that when you get into that moment with your partner, that your mind is there, you're present, you're not thinking about other things. And even if you do have other things to do, the 30 minutes that you're together, or the hour that you're together, or the time that you've planned together to spend this time, it will pass. Then you'll be able to do your task, or you'll be able to put yourself into the next thing. That time will come. So you might as well just completely push it off to the side, get it out of mind, and spend time with the person that you really care about so that they can feel from you that you really care about them. Number 4 is physical touch. I think the biggest misconception with this is that physical touch is easy. It's just having more sex. But physical touch is everything from hugs to holding hands, cuddling. Just feeling the presence of the person that you care about is really what physical touch comes down to. Sex is a part of it because that includes physical touch, But I'd almost argue that that's the least important part of physical touch for most people, especially women, if that's their primary love language. If you're not someone who physical touch comes to naturally, this might be a little bit challenging for you. Some really easy opportunities are just putting a hand on the lower back, holding hands when you're out for a walk, looking for opportunities for like playful touch or tickling. You don't have to overthink it. It's really just connecting physically with your partner. Number 5 is receiving gifts. If you find out that your partner receives love through physical gifts, it can probably give you a little bit of a heart attack because you're like, oh man, I gotta go broke. But if your partner really does care about you, then it's not about how much money you spend on a gift. In fact, the gift itself doesn't have to cost anything. It can be something that you make, something that you find, something that you already own that she would really like. What matters about the gift isn't the price tag. The whole reason for the gift is because when they receive it, they feel like you understand them. What they see in that gift is a reflection of how well you understand them as a person. They know that you understand them in a way that most people don't. And that's the whole reason that you gave them this particular gift in the first place. It really comes down to the thoughtfulness. That's probably the best word to describe it. It could be flowers. You don't have to buy them from the store. You can snip them from a bush somewhere, just not someone's yard. Whenever I go out into the forest hiking or fishing or hunting or anything like that, I always look for a little pretty stone that I can bring back and give my girlfriend, and she can put in one of her planters or something like that. And those things don't cost anything, but they're meaningful. So that's the key: meaningful, thoughtful. 2 things are hopefully coming to mind for you right now. Number 1, what about me? And number 2 is, well, that's all well and fine, but that's not how I give love. The likelihood that you have met a partner or that all of your friends or all of your family members share the same way of giving and receiving love that you do is probably 0. But that's also kind of by design, because if you really care about somebody, going back to the concept of seek first to understand before being understood, that is the foundation on which meaningful relationships are built. It's not about what can I get, it's what can I give. And if 2 people come into a relationship with that mentality, that's how you create a relationship that will last. One of the best analogies I've ever heard is a relationship in whatever capacity: friendships, family members, romantic relationships. The relationship itself is a garden. It exists outside of the 2 people in that relationship, and both people are responsible for coming into that garden and watering and planting the seeds, pruning, taking care of the plants. Otherwise, the garden will get overrun or die. That's really the concept of coming into a relationship, seeking first to understand before being understood, not coming into the relationship expecting your needs to be met, but wanting to give more than you get. I'll use myself as an example. My ways of giving love are all of these, as most people have all of them in them, but they're dominated by 2. So the first one is acts of service, and the second one is quality time. That's how I best show my love for other people. But not everybody in my life receives that very well. So I might do something for somebody else, but if they don't interpret that as me showing them that I really care about having them in my life, then it's not going to land for them, and I'm going to see that it doesn't land for them, and then I'm going to, unfortunately, probably build up a little bit of resentment, especially if I'm doing that over and over again and not seeing the reciprocity or the effect that I wanted to see. So my job in that relationship is to understand how the person on the other end best receives my love, or my care, my affection. And maybe it's receiving gifts, which it doesn't come natively to me, but I care about this person and I want them to know that. So I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that they feel that by looking for opportunities to, even though it's not native to me, even though it doesn't come naturally, I'm going to look for opportunities to do that for them. Now, on the flip side of that coin, it's important that the people that you care about also know how you receive their affection, how you receive their love. So you have to know what those are for you. For me, I don't do well with words of affirmation. I don't do well with acts of service. I do best with quality time and physical touch. So you'll notice something there. I love doing acts of service. I even love words of affirmation as far as giving is concerned. I don't like receiving it. It's not that I don't like it. It's not my favorite. Same with receiving gifts. Not a big one for me. But I really like quality time and I really like physical touch. So I need to make sure that the people in my life know that. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can outright say it. You can have a conversation, which is always a great idea. Open up dialogue between you and your partner or your friends or your family members. Let them know that this is something something that you're learning more about, and you're learning more about how you relate to others, and you want to know how they relate to you, and you can figure it out between you two, how best to communicate your care for each other. But you can also just pick up on patterns. So if you've been with somebody long enough, or if you've known somebody long enough, you can start to pick up on patterns of how they acted when you did certain things. So think about how you can categorize these 5 love languages into actions with the people in your life, and then just start putting feelers out there and see their response, gauge their response. And if you want to do the same, but for other people understanding you, you can be subtle about that by bringing up past experiences. Somebody did something for you, or somebody said something really nice to you, or somebody gave you a really meaningful gift. I don't want to say reinforce that behavior, but just let them know that you really appreciated it and that it meant a lot to you. In the description of this video, I should have a link to a test that you can take, and it's from the 5 love languages, which is a book, by the way. You should go out and check the book as well. But in the video description will be a link to an exercise that you can do, and it's going to help you understand your best way of communicating love, your best way of receiving love as well. And then you should be able to pick up on those prompts, the people in your life who would probably answer those questions in their own way, so that you can better understand how they receive love, how they give love. And even better is if you can go through that exercise with the person that you really care about, so that you both understand each other without any questions. So thank you for spending some time with me today. I hope that you got something out of this video. I would love to hear from you. What do you think your love language is, and what has been your experience with communication in the past? Do you feel like this is clearing some things up for you? Did you already know this? Have you put this into practice before? What have been your results? Anything related to what we talked about today, I'd love to hear your experience and your thoughts on. I look forward to reading your comments. I would love it if you subscribed, if you gave a like, and if you shared this video with anybody that you think could also benefit from it. I will see you in the next video.